everybody. Yay. What? What did I do?
It's yay. That's how we start our Ginger Runner live shows. This is happening. This is what happens when you go live every day, you guys.
Yes. We'll talk about that during the main show. But welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 309. I still haven't learned how we do this.
You're getting up there.
Getting up there. We're excited about tonight's episode because we get to bring back one of our favorite people on Earth, David Roach. He's going to talk to us in our Ask Coach Roach series that we've been doing every about 6 to 8 weeks. We like to bring David, sometimes David and Megan, onto the show to answer all of your running-related questions, whether it's running-related, training-related, nutrition, strength training, all that. This guy has a wealth of knowledge and has coached some of the best in the world to greatness and success. So it's always awesome to have him on the show. Mm-hmm. Plus, we just get to have fun banter and stuff like that. So it's really going to be a fun show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Sit back, relax, grab your beverage of choice. Ginger Runner Live, episode 309, begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay!
You did it.
I learned my lesson.
I had the cue card in front of you, and it just says, yay.
17 A's. We add an A every week. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 309. Thank you for taking a little bit of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. Even that wasn't right. I am working my way through it.
You got this.
Working on it.
You got this, champ.
We are excited about tonight's episode because we get to bring back one of our favorite people ever. He's always down to do a Ginger Runner Live episode, which is kind of one of our favorite things. But David Roach will be joining us here in just a second. Coach David Roach. We like to have him on every 6 to 8 weeks just for our segment called Ask Coach Roach, where we get to ask your questions and get answers about training, running-related questions, gear, strength training, motivation, the mental aspect of it. He is he's got this wealth of knowledge. He's a fantastic coach, and we just love having him on the show because I feel like we always pull some amazing piece of inspiration or knowledge or something from every episode that we have him on. So tonight, hopefully, will be no different. Before we introduce our wonderful guest, though, it is not just myself, Ethan. I'm also joined, as always, by...
Hi.
Kim.
That's my name.
Just hi.
What's up, everyone? Kim Tashima Newberry here, as always. If you're new, welcome. If you're used to seeing our face 7 days a week, thank you for still joining us.
Yeah, no kidding. We've been doing a daily live show for our Patreon subscribers. It's been a lot of fun. It's called Daily Brew. Where every day we go live for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. The conversations range from everything from why there's an actual live spider on the microphone, which did happen last week.
To 80s toys that I remember smelling like strawberries.
It's been great. It's been kind of this daily sort of thing that daily scheduled thing that sort of gets everyone kind of in a good mindset for the day, brings the community together. If you'd like to join us, you can go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner and join us for as little as $3. The $3 tier and above gets to join our daily live brews. But of course, we like to start every show thanking our Patreon crew because it is because of them that we're able to do this full time. We're still here cranking out videos, movies, reviews, live shows every day. And it is due in huge part to our Patreon crew. 2 individuals at that top tier we like to thank at the top of every episode. Brian Sands and Chris Lee. Brian Sands has an amazing inspirational story, lost over 100 pounds in his running journey, ran his first marathon at the age of 50, his first 50K, currently training. We got to let him talk about it sometime on Ginger Runner Live, but he's training for something
for all
really
sorts
big,
of crazy things right now.
really big stuff. Which is pretty damn exciting. And Chris Lee, shout out to him in Hong Kong. He's been a longtime supporter and has an organization over there called Trailblazer. They do gear. They have a brick and mortar. They also showcase the trails in the region and stuff. And Chris has just been incredibly supportive even through all of this. So shout out to him as well. And we promised ourselves that we would we don't take sponsors for this show unless it's a beer sponsor. At the very beginning of Ginger Runner Live, it was like, as with all of our reviews, we do not take money. We do not partner up unless it is beer based, and we're very, very happy that.
And
Sufferfest
that's partially so we can remain unbiased
in our product reviews and all that stuff.
I mean, we do love beer as well, but
so Sufferfest has been coming through the last few weeks. They have this new IPA. It's called Gut Check IPA. Has some apple cider vinegar in the brew process that's mixed in. It's just, I mean, Kim and I drink Sufferfest, and we have for a long time. Yeah. We know the owners, the creators. If you are new to trail running, expect to see this all over the place. They really love to support trail runners and endurance athletes because they themselves are that. And there's currently a cool sort of collaboration with Strava going on right now. If you join the Strava group, that is the Sufferfest Beer Challenge. There is basically the challenge is 4 workouts a week for 4 weeks. And this is the final week through May. So join up if you have not already. So thank you, Sufferfest, for supporting the show. We appreciate you very much. Can I introduce David?
I don't know. Can you?
I mean,
you can, but are you going to do it correctly? I don't know.
I want to mention GRGR, but maybe I'll bring David on first because I think David is just one of those people that maybe will help.
He looks like he's ready.
He looks like he's already ready for GRGR. Without further ado, our guest, David Roach.
Yay!
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to hear about GRGR, and I'm like chomping at the bit. I kind of look like I'm in a tanning bed right now, at least for mine, with this yellow light coming in on me. So maybe I am. Maybe I'm multitasking.
I mean,
you look nice and golden.
It's the golden
glow. We look very
glow.
pale PNWE right now.
Yeah, we very much live in Seattle, and you very much live in like beautiful Colorado.
I know. It's pretty nice here. But I was just thinking, I just went to the grocery store, and on there I got the generic Golden Grams. So we have
the generic
vertical integration of my goldenness. So that's the theme of the day.
The weird thing about that is I just bought a box of Golden Grams the other week. I don't normally eat Golden Grams, but we were in the store, which we have rarely been doing in the last couple of months.
Oh, right, the cereal.
The cereal.
I was thinking when you said Golden Grams, I was thinking the little bears.
Oh.
What are
like Golden Bears? Like gummy bears?
No, like the cracker cookie. The little
like Golden Graham? No, honey grams?
I don't know. Somebody
Hi,
in
David.
the chat room.
I mean, I just have to say that the knowledge of cereal names there is not good. In fact, that is my advice. My real Ask the Coach advice is everyone listening. Right now, next time you go to the grocery store, get one ridiculous cereal. Like the thing that you always brush by and you're like, no, but part of you is like, I want that. Get that, because you're gonna finish a run and you're gonna be like, wow, that is the best Coach I've ever seen.
Teddy Grahams. Brian Sands, thank you.
Teddy Grahams. Everybody's like, Teddy Grahams.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
but the
I
chat
know.
literally, it's delayed like 20 seconds. So we just now are seeing the 50 people recommending Teddy Grahams. But I did just get Golden Grams. It's so funny that you mentioned that. I haven't had those for years, but we were in that cereal aisle and I went, I want Golden Grams.
What were you actually looking for?
Ooh, what was I?
Like Captain Crunch or something?
No. Corn Pops.
Corn Pops.
Which I haven't had since, I didn't even eat sugar cereal when I was a kid. So I don't remember the last time I've had Corn Pops. I think we saw a commercial. I cannot believe a commercial worked where it was, a crappy Corn Pops commercial. And I went, I want that. How are your off-brand Golden Grams? Are they as good?
Oh, they're amazing. To be fair though, I am not exactly like, while I am a connoisseur in terms of quantity, I'm not a connoisseur in terms of quality with anything. When it comes to food, I'm just an all-around big fan. Big fan of food. I have a bumper sticker that just says food.
Do you really?
No, I wish I did.
You have to. That's got to come with every book
Maria
order.
Dalzot's in the chat room right now, and I feel like she's just like smiling ear to ear right now.
Well, except for the time when I was like recommending diabetes to people through children's cereal. Though, so probably my real advice is talk to Maria, and then get Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
And shout out to Maria because she just today posted an audio recap of her first meeting with a GR crew member. Actually, they released the audio of what a consultation looks like and sounds like with an actual registered dietitian. So if you are ever thinking about talking to someone about food, someone like Maria, who's a registered dietitian, just released that audio version of here's what a first call could look like. Very helpful. Little shout out there. I wanted to start, David. We've obviously we've had you on the show a number of times over the last year plus, and you're always just full of knowledge and inspiration. And as I mentioned to Kim, even before we went live today, it's just like I love having David on because we can enter a show feeling one way, but we always leave feeling really positive. You have that impact on people. How have you been holding up through all of this? Because you coach so many people how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I mean, I think because I get to check in with people every day that I really care about, it's this built-in reverse support too. Like even if athletes don't realize they're doing it, like it is my comfort. And so I get to check in with all my best friends every day. And I mean, it literally is all my best friends. And so, it's a little bit of a cop out because it's like, I haven't felt isolated, even though I've been socially isolated, because I get to do that. And so, one thing I'm seeing for a lot of other people is right now, I think, especially people that are still maintaining social isolation is starting to kind of like pull at the seams of their resolve a little, especially as they start to see others stop doing that. And so what I would just encourage everyone listening that might start to be feeling a little like stir crazy with everything is just to take a step back and be like, okay, this is okay. Like, what other people are doing does not need to influence my behavior. Like I'll do what I'm comfortable with. That's just not me saying that you need to do one thing or another. It's just saying like the things that make you comfortable in this moment are the things that are going to be best for you. And part of that is trying to let go as much as you can of control of others, because I think what we're going to see a lot in the next, few weeks in particular is like society as a whole starting to like split into a bunch of different cohorts, not even politically, but just, people that are going different amounts of crazy. And so, giving yourself a lot of grace, but also trying to give that to other people because, it's a crazy world out there right now, and it's not changing as summer starts. So it's weird, but yeah. So I'm fortunate in that regard, and I think being an introvert helps.
Yeah. We talk about that every day too, and how we the daily brews have been really helpful for us because it does allow us to sit down in this chair and talk with 50, 100 people every day, and that's a good part of the day. But then the rest of the day, we're able to just sort of shut the doors, shut the walls, and sort of focus on ourselves and stuff like that. We just had Danielle Snyder. The episode was fantastic, and she kind of mentioned the same sort of things because we started bringing up that same conversation of how do we focus,
control our rage.
Control our rage, I think is the best way to put it. And so what have you been telling your athletes? Because I can only imagine the stuff you're seeing in your logs with your athletes is also the whole range, right? The whole gamut of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps to zoom outside of this particular scenario, because this particular scenario is like just crazy in every single way. But it has analogies in how we live our life always. And like for every one of us almost to different varying degrees, we really think about control. Like, the brain wants to be able to control, our trajectory with our work, our trajectory as an athlete, how long we live, all these other things that manifest in different types of actions. And, at the end of the day, a lot of control is an illusion. And getting comfortable with that illusory effect of control is something that's so key to being happy, because, not only in our own lives, that's an illusion for the most part. When you start thinking about other people, it becomes like it just fully impossible. So this is a good time to have an exercise of like, okay, I'm not going to yell at someone even though they deserve it, or whatever the thought is that pops into your head, and be like, okay, now's the time to pull a Queen Elsa and let it go as much as you can. So that's not saying like, advocating for what you believe in is wrong. It's saying that, understanding like what you're trying to do isn't like influence the social good through that one person. It's to try to, have some sort of semblance of feeling like you can control this. But easier said than done, because that also applies to, when you think about people having eating issues or exercise issues or anything else, most of it comes back to control. So, I mean, the main thing I would just say is, however you're dealing with it's great. And, if you occasionally you need to yell at someone on the trails, that's fine too.
I'm just yelling at you every day.
Yeah, what ends up happening is it's like we'll get frustrated with something, and Kim will just be like, "Did you see that?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I saw that." All right,
cool. We got it out.
We're
good. Moving on.
I can't,
society needs fight clubs more than ever.
I just was thinking about that. I just watched Fight Club maybe 3 weeks
Oh,
ago,
that's
4 weeks
right.
ago. And I was in my mind the whole time I was going, oh man, Fight Clubs, this is going to be a thing. Like people are going to need this.
Oh my, it's so true. I guess that's kind of what running is when you think about it, like it's a lot of different things, but one of the things it is pushing back against the shackles of modern society in, your little rebellious ways and then going back and putting the tie back on,
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about running is it's like, yeah, I talk a lot in terms of recess, but what I really mean when I say recess is not fun because running can be fun, but it often isn't. What I mean is you're escaping whatever the normal is, whatever whatever society has dictated for you and your station. Running is the time that it's like, nope, none of that stuff is what I am right now. I am something different entirely. And I think that's super powerful. And it's why I encourage athletes like to embrace the crap and all that stuff, because that's where you're really like, once you start putting comfort aside is when you're giving society the biggest middle finger, and in case this is, I'm censoring myself on that, but I was going to have two really good ones there. So imagine it.
Yeah. YouTube's algorithm is like, oh,
Like
there's
this?
middle finger. I also don't want to gloss over the fact that you said something that's pretty profound, and I don't think we've really ever talked about it on the show, but that control is an illusion is one of those things that I don't think enough people maybe take into account or even think about. We've like in the last few weeks, we've really taken the mantra control the controllables to heart, and feeling certain things about stuff well outside of our control, or watching a video online and going, oh, having that internal conflict and realizing I have no control over that, but I do have control over my feelings and that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But at the same point, looking at control as an illusion as to where things go from here. And it's such an interesting and unique way. And that philosophical approach is hard to sort of wrap your brain around.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I think that's why, unless someone is a Zen Buddhist at heart, they need they need mental tools to get to that point. One that I've been using for my own, I have stresses that mean nothing in the big scheme of things, like everyone does, is I was reading a book called The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. It's really good. And in it, they're talking about like geological time, evolutionary time. And, for some reason, I was just in the state of mind reading it that thinking about the actual process of tectonic plates moving an inch or two per year and winding thousands of miles apart, or something evolved, like just thinking about, oh yeah. Not only is like, my time fleeting, but like all of this stuff is fleeting. But to narrow it down into maybe more practical ways, one thing I've heard people say is think about what was stressing you out a year ago today. Like and how that is playing a role in your life now, or 2 years, and that helps for like some stresses. And then maybe like the best one of all that I've ever heard that I try to use for everything, with the caveat that mental health is totally individual, is Pete Holmes, a comedian that writes a lot about philosophical issues too, said like whenever he's in traffic or dealing with anything that's an annoyance, or see someone on a trail that is doing something that angers him, he just says, yes, thank you. And just like recenters himself and like, no, thank you. Like I'm here now and this is okay. And, essentially trying to inject gratitude into times when you would be feeling the opposite things, or at least give yourself that reminder, even if you don't feel it. So that's especially like ever since, when in the before times in California traffic, saying yes, thank you was always the biggest moment of like, what am I in a rush to get to this thing for? Like, it doesn't matter. But that being said, I think if someone's struggling with this, especially as it relates to food and things, there's steps to take before you get there, which is like talking to people like Danielle or Maria or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I just love that conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm also realizing I'm looking over at Kim's computer monitor. There are so many questions.
This is probably the most questions we've ever had on
By
a
far.
Coach Roach episode, and it's 4:26.
Yeah,
PM.
so I am gonna shut my mouth down a little bit. Kim, I'll let you take over. Let's just get to some of these questions. It is an Ask Coach Roach episode.
And you
after
can
all.
definitely keep asking questions in the chat
Keep 'em
room
coming.
as well. Before we get into the questions, just really quick, Meg Leach in the chat room says, control is an illusion, is something my therapist tells me every single week.
Mhm.
I have control issues personally, so it's something that I definitely have to learn. All right, so let's dig into some of these questions here. Brian in the chat room says, are you advising athletes to sign up for any races in the fall and winter, or suggesting to hold off at this time?
Great question. I'm saying, yeah, go for it, especially in states that might, be more relaxed. As long as the athlete isn't the type of person that gets all their hopes up for that one thing and will get a letdown. So like, it's one of those know yourself situations, but I think it's time to start putting big adventures, races on, at least on your mental radar. And, understanding that there's going to be uncertainty there throughout. But yeah, I think it's time to go for it.
I want to dovetail just on that conversation because it relates to us. But I also want to say, if you have any local virtual races or any virtual races that are going on currently, I know that there's a bunch out there. Sign up for them. As someone who is, like Kim and I are both race directors and also host GRGR, which is our annual Ginger Runner Global Run. It's our virtual race we've been doing for 5 years. Right now, there's race directors whose whole business model had been thrown out the window. So if they have a virtual race option, it is a great way to support races that maybe are not taking place or aren't able to take place. So you're supporting those organizations in ways that even they probably didn't foresee.
Right. There's likely a reason that they're hosting a virtual race right now.
So if you have the means, I highly encourage you to sign up for those virtual races that you see people running right now. Especially if you are of the mindset of, I don't get virtual races, I don't understand them. Why would I go run? Why would I pay to run around my own neighborhood? It's just think about who you're supporting. GRGR supports artists. We're supporting small businesses. Aravaipa Running has their whole series. It supports Aravaipa. Gary Robbins has his that's going to be starting this summer, which is going to be supporting BC Search and Rescue and other things like that. Find the ones that you want to sign up for and sign up for them. I don't mean to take away or bootleg myself into that conversation. It was just a great opportunity for me to sort of plug other people's virtual races. Gretchen Walla has her 12-hour one. Yep. Okay, sorry. Keep going. Sorry.
You better be sorry.
Ethan, this is my podcast that I've been 6 years. How dare
we talk all day, every day, just our voices. This is the opportunity for David, and I hate that
You're
oh my
still
God. No,
talking.
that's so important. That's exactly what I was saying. I mean, I think virtual races are a great way to structure those big efforts. And then as it relates to regular racing, like assume society is going to move on and start in a way that is also productive for your mental health. Like right now, even if it changes later, that is a part of the control thing that we were talking about before. Right now you can be purpose driven towards what you want to do, and what happens later, it doesn't discount how you feel tomorrow.
Love it.
Question from Amber in the chat room. Amber says, I've been struggling to run. I'm doing other activities, but I'm finding it challenging to pick up the pace during COVID. Any tips or advice would be greatly appreciated.
Running is hard and it sucks sometimes. So that feeling is totally shared by many people, and it's totally okay. The one thing I would say, though, is that so much of developing as an athlete, as a runner, is just giving your body the chance. So, in that question, Amber, you're saying things like I don't want to do, I can't do it, things like that. But I guarantee that you could go, as long as you're healthy, go do 5 minutes around the block or something like that. And that's the place to start. I think it's really tempting to be like, oh, well, I see these people on Instagram that do 25 miles or even 5 miles, like I mentioned this on here before, but 5 miles is so far. And it's awesome to be able to do, but so is a run around the block. And if that's where you start with that, then I guarantee you'll be doing those things that you want to do later. But like, I encourage all athletes not to skip steps in that process. Like, listen to your body, let it get there. Don't force the pace. And then eventually everything will feel good. And if it sucks in those 5 minutes, that's okay. Like the sucky 5 minutes is part of the process too. And so just don't judge and just be like, oh, I'm out for my sucky 5.
It's been interesting working my way back up after injury. David's been really, really, really patient with my build back up, starting essentially from 0 like 2 months ago, right at the beginning of quarantine. And it was really interesting to work back slowly and realize, oh my God, 4 miles. That is actually a lot longer than I always, you take it for granted. And then once you get injured or take a step back or something, you realize that's a good freaking distance. And beyond that is like, how was I doing this before,
I've told this story on here before, but I'm assuming that everyone's drinking. So I always remember my first run. So, I was a big, strong football player. My first run after I quit football, didn't run at all for like 9 months. But I biked. I was healthy. I got 200 yards before I stopped and was sore for days after. And that always sticks with me because I'm like, that is the natural state of how running feels. But everything is like that when you think about it. Like if you don't podcast ever and then do a podcast, it's the hard or write. I mean, all these things are the hardest things in the world until you do them repetitively, little actions, And so that's one reason I don't ever, when I write a lot but I never write about writing because I think it's a kind of, like, it's not something that most people care about. But I do think it's really like a lot of people struggle with the idea of, okay, how am I going to write this thing that I have to write? And the point is you're just writing like 1 word or 2 words or a sentence at a time. That's nothing. But if you think about the whole thing that you have to do, it's impossible. And the same goes for running.
Love it.
So this is kind of flip side of the last question, but Vivian says, Coach Roach, I'm finding it hard to stay sane during rest days. 24 hours is too long to be inactive. Any advice?
Okay, so I think the key with rest days is, if you have that type of thing, is not to be like, okay, this means I do nothing today. It means I do everything I do except run, except have impact on my legs. So, what I really encourage athletes to do is go through all the routines, go through the same routine you do before you go out the door, including changing into your workout clothes if you want. Whatever that entails for like a warm up that's not running, or whatever it entails for like what you do after. And instead of the run, replace it with walk, like a nice couple mile walk or whatever. Just listening to, I like athletes to listen to like goofy pop music or podcasts that they love, like things that are light. But then the rest of you're essentially, you have the same time blocks. Your body stays in the same schedule, but you're not, you're recovering, you're adapting, which is the key. Like with rest days, I really want athletes to think of it not as this is my body resting and doing nothing. Like this isn't sleep. Sleep is that. This is adaptation time. And so in adaptation time, you can still move. Maybe a good analogy is in the Tour de France when they have their rest days in the race, which are like usually 2 rest days in the race. They still bike. They just bike at like a pace I could do, They're just like, which for them is the equivalent of a slow walk. Because if they don't do that, their bodies shut down. And maybe that's what Vivian's feeling a little bit, is that like fatigue, lethargy feeling. So yeah, live your life. Just don't like impact your knees.
Yeah, I think we figured out early on, Mondays today is our day off, and we like to take Gus for a walk. So we need to go around the neighborhood. We have to get outside. It's just one of those things where even if it's in our backyard during all this, it's like, just because we're not scheduled to run today, we still need to get outside and do something. It's just part of our DNA.
Yeah.
Dino DNA.
Well, yeah. And I encourage like also, if we're talking about brain chemicals here, do other things to get those. Like try to be the most kind version of that's what Megan brought into it, is she was like, on the rest days, I want people to laugh as much as they can and be as kind as they possibly can. The reason I like the introvert way of doing that is like listening to comedy or like podcasts or funny music or whatever. But essentially don't view it as, oh man, this is my day of nothing. This is instead my day of like, heck yeah, let's do some things that maybe I wouldn't have the energy to do or the time to do otherwise.
Love it. Keep them coming.
These are two questions that kind of go hand in hand, I think. So this is from Watermelon Delight 10, and the other
It's just
question.
a great username in general.
I love it. The other question is from Drew McComber. So the first question is, Coach Roach, how can we inject more fun into runs? And the question from Drew is, any insight into knowing when not to fight through the suck? So I thought those two kind of go hand in hand.
Well, Watermelon Delight 10, like all great philosophers of our time. I think when it comes to fun, creating play-like atmospheres in all things we do is something that is not to be taken for granted. It's not something that comes naturally, except for crazy people. You need to consciously force like some sort of like lightness into your life. Otherwise, like it very quickly becomes about death and taxes. And so, I was just thinking about like one thing I love athletes to do. I mean, I'm a big fan of music on runs. You don't need to do it, but it's to like actually like, so, one thing I've been assigning a couple of athletes this week is the song Reflections by Mr. Wives. And when it gets to the chorus, you'll understand. Just kind of go like this, like start like, you'll know what I mean when you listen to the song. But to do things like that, like, when you're not just music, but like when you're actually running, like, don't just run, like occasionally do a twist, like throw your arms out, like make a noise, like try to keep it interesting. Like, don't just go out there and do the same motion or whatever. Like actually make it play. So that can be in workouts, but even if you're just doing the normal easy thing all the time, just make it interesting. Do something crazy. Do something that makes you blush and be like, oh my God, I hope no one was watching. That's when you start to feel like the kid. Like today, for example, I did that because I try to do that too myself. I need it all the time because like it's a grind for me too. And while I was doing this,
For our podcast listeners, David is flailing wildly.
Exactly. I assume it's actually really interesting to think about what they thought I was doing. So yeah, like we need to put some sound effects in there. But yeah, like I did that, and then someone saw me and they laughed at me, and it's the best. Who cares? Yeah, exactly. Like, magical. And for Drew's question, and for those that don't know, Drew McComber is like he's going to set the trail world on fire in the coming years. He's one of the best athletes I've ever seen, and I think keep an eye on him for some big FKTs later this year. But he's asking about when to call it, and I think essentially for most athletes, you can just any type of injury. Essentially, the place to digress is whether it's normal fatigue, like not like feeling a little heavy, versus something that might be more pathological. So fatigue that like you just want to fall asleep on the trail. So what I encourage athletes to do is first step. Slow down until you're running almost at walking pace. And if that doesn't work, stop and walk home. Like you can always but before you stop, give yourself the grace to be like, okay, it's okay to run whatever my walking pace is. That's a great run. Kenyans do that all the time, and they're the fastest people on earth. And if that still doesn't feel right, get the heck out of Dodge.
Excellent advice. Kim just pointed out that Drew McComber.
Drew came in 4th at Tiger Claw last year.
Yeah. Well,
he's
next
very,
year,
very fast. Very
fast.
Next year, he's going to annihilate the course record. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Laying down
challenge dropped. We'll see about that. What?
For anyone listening on the podcast, Ethan is flailing around wildly.
Yeah.
I can flail wild more.
Sound effects.
I would say.
What is that one?
I think it's harp. It might just be. Was that harp? We can't hear it, but I know.
It sounded like Tweety Bird type
sound. Even better.
Even better. It's been an ongoing joke that we can't hear our own sound effects. So, yeah, it's just part of it.
That one doesn't stop. That's trombone.
It doesn't
you can't stop it until it's done. There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Questions?
Let's see. A question from Brendan Coral. Brendan says, I'm training for my first 100-kilometer road run. I'm increasing my weekly total by 10% with an easy week every 5th week. What should my maximum weekly total leading up to my 100-kilometer race be?
So weekly volume it's a great question, Brendan. And weekly volume is totally a proxy for other things. I think often people have a tendency to be like, okay, weekly volume is the dependent variable, whatever. That wasn't my forte. And the independent variable is race performance or fitness or whatever. And it does not work like that. Weekly volume instead is referencing things like an athlete's, ability to withstand this type of volume with health, to adapt to the training they're doing. And often that means that the athletes that are doing big, high volume perform really well, but it's because they're good at other things. There's a lot of examples of this in training theory. My favorite, this is really inside baseball but just for people that are really into this, like for athletes that are really like pro athletes I coach, they often do double runs. And they're like, how long should my double run be? Like, shouldn't it be longer? And I'm always like, keep it shorter. And because the reason is hormonal, like if we're looking for a hormonal stimulus, the shorter the double is, the better for most of these athletes. But then they're like, well, why is this really good athlete doing long doubles? And the answer is because they can do long doubles, they are successful. Not the long doubles themselves. They are the type of athlete that can withstand it. So long way back to the thing being, the mileage you should do is whatever mileage you feel most like strong at. Like, I think the sweet spot for most athletes training for really long ultras is 50-ish miles a week. Like, I know that you shouldn't put a number on that as a coach, but I've seen it. I've seen Kat Drew run 48 miles a week and finish 8th at Western States. Claire do that to win Western States. Scotty Hawker to be in the 40s and finish 3rd at UTMB. So if an athlete can work up to that over time, I think that they'll get really close to starting to understand what their potential is and where they can start turning the knobs, whether that's volume or other things, to get the next little bit. But if Brendan's asking that question from like, I was hoping to get to 20 can work too. The point is, it's whatever place you feel strongest at. Find your strong, and what that looks like and feels like for different athletes will vary a ton.
Great perspective on that. Yeah, I know Brendan's been training for a while for that. It's gonna be a fun event to follow.
Yeah. Question from King Pat 125. King Pat says, as a coach, how do you know when to tell an athlete to take time off versus keep training when something hurts?
When in doubt, take time off. If anything hurts and it's not getting better, there's no benefit to working through it for a number of different reasons. One being it could get worse. Two being that's a way to actually make the fun stuff we talked about impossible. But probably the biggest one being that time off does not hurt the body substantially. Because the problem is we get back to these mileage frameworks where our brains want to put us in these silos of, I am not doing this type of work, so my body will thus, crumble, whatever we think happens. And I'm the same way. But in reality, the body is operating on totally different timescales, much longer, and in a much more fluid way than our brain, our control-oriented brain, likes to think, getting back to the control element. So with that in mind, time off is always good. I mean, there's so many stories. Like Keely Henninger, she had a little thing pop up before Chuckanut. She took 6 days off, 2 weeks before the race, only ran a few days before the race, nearly set the course record subsequently. Claire, before Western States last year when she won, she just walked around Alaska and didn't run at all for 3 weeks and then came back a week before or whatever. And there's tons of stories like that even last longer. I mean, basically every athlete that I've ever seen have breakthroughs can trace those breakthroughs directly back to some sort of, time off, often forced. And so it sucks when it's forced, or it sucks when you're on the fence and don't know. But, if you don't know, that means you shouldn't go. And it rhymes, so I stopped myself.
That is a rhyme. Stop.
And stop.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll move into the after show with David.
One or two more questions. This is an interesting question from Will. Will says, what is Coach Roach's opinion on letting anger motivate you during a run versus other emotions?
So during a run, great. Use whatever power emotions you got on, out there. I mean, anger can be an element of play too, like there is, by play, we're talking about expression of self. That's great. If it becomes runs or it's a way of thinking about the world, try to get off that train as quickly as you can. The fires that can ignite, our abilities can also burn us up from the inside. And any self-improvement that comes from a place of negativity towards yourself or others is going to backfire eventually. Or you're going to reach the mountaintop and realize that you hate yourself and what you've become. I mean, there's a reason that Darth Vader is strong as hell, but is like not necessarily Mr. Rogers in terms of happiness. So I don't know where that came from. But yeah, so what I would say is like, yes, embrace the way you feel. Best race of my life came when I felt anger about something and let it fuel me. And that's awesome in moderation, but make sure that anger isn't something that you carry with you off the trail or like is something that is with you too often, because I think that that's the one time when, the types of outcomes that you're starting to see there become about much worse and, longer term things than anything that could happen during a run.
Got it. Go for it.
One more? Question from April. April says, is there a best way to run uphill? And if so, what is it? I think I'm mostly staying on the balls of my feet when I run uphill, but I think that could be causing me pain after several miles of rolling terrain. Should I put my heel completely down when running uphill? Any tips on retraining my uphill form?
So first, I think we should all have a little group talk here that uphills are the worst. And I mean, I think as soon as we start that, we start the healing. So, I say that mostly as a joke, but also because, when we're thinking, it's very tempting to be like, uphills will get easier, but it really doesn't. It has to be about the fact that it is a grind, it's not about, I get this descent after. It's like, no, I get this moment. So if you're watching or if you're listening or watching or whatever, and you don't like uphills, trust me, you have like 95% of pro runners out there, and the other 5% are lying. Actually, that's not true. I'm sorry if someone disagrees. But yeah, so when it comes to actually running uphills, the main key I like athletes to have, particularly athletes that are thinking about this for the first time, is to lean into the hill, to lean forward. And I've read like Runner's World articles and stuff. They're like, make sure you keep good posture upright. It's like, no, don't, no. If you ever look at like Kilian Jornet or all these other people, they're so good at just leaning slightly into the hill. And sometimes on steep hills, I mean, you'll see them practically kissing the ground. I often tell athletes nose to toes, not because they actually are able to, they do anything like that, but because it rhymes and it keys in a little bit better form. That helps you engage your glutes and all these other things. And as it relates to footfall in particular, I don't like athletes to think about that too much. I think all the studies say that altering footfall is something that isn't necessarily helpful. I will say that you probably shouldn't be, if only your toes are touching the ground at any point in endurance running, that's probably like, if you look at biomechanical patterns of like still shots, almost no athlete is able to do that unless they're fully sprinting. And if you're doing that in uphill, it's possible, but your calves are so engaged that they'll weaken far before they should. So it doesn't mean run flat-footed. It just means let your foot fall naturally. And usually that means, unless you're really holding a lot of tension, you're probably going to let your heel drop to the ground slightly. So that also distributes some of the load, which is good. So that is my answer.
What about cadence?
So another thing I don't like athletes to think about, take all the tension out. Lean forward, take all the tension out. And, we're not Jim Walmsley who bounds up hills. In general, short strides mean that less tension goes through your musculoskeletal system with each stride. Tension is one of the main things, tension as it relates to power output per stride, one of the main things that raises metabolic like use factors, like power, like all the internal things that cause fatigue. So, if you distribute that across a wider, like more steps, it's usually better for fatigue over time. So in general, I'm a fan of like an athlete being on the higher end of their natural cadence range, with the understanding that cadence ranges are really different for different athletes.
Got it. What do you think? You want to do one more live question, or you want to save it for after?
Save it for post show.
We'll do it for the after show.
For the post show.
Save it for the post show.
This beer is working.
Can I then with one last thing?
Yeah.
Listening. So I wrote a bunch of notes, but don't stop that. It says like, if someone like pauses that, it says like butter, pizza. No.
Golden grams.
Yeah, exactly. I have a bunch of, I'll go right to the one that I mentioned briefly in the show, and the point I really want people to take away. So we're spending a lot of time in our own heads right now, and that's a microcosm of life as it always is. But right now, I think it's magnified to such a point that it's a time not just to get through it. As I said the last time I was on, it's a time to start building thought patterns that we can use to lift us up forever. And the one I want you to think about today is what I said earlier: find your strong. You look at a running magazine and you see someone that looks a certain way. You think about yourself even in your history, and think about what you looked like and all these different things. And basically what I want you to think about is that what strong looks like and feels like is so individual dependent, and it changes over time for each individual. So like you have to give yourself the space to find what that means for you. In practice, what finding your strong means, make sure you're fueling your body, not just day to day, but also within days. It's by far the biggest key. I have an article coming out tomorrow on the within day thing. Let yourself like be who you are and be who you feel like physically too. I think you see an Olympian and you're like, oh, well, that person, they could never lift up their kids, so I probably should like make sure I don't put on upper body muscle or whatever. And it's like, no, that's great. Like you want to be whatever the version of you that is the most strong all around is the one you want to be. And then the final element of that is the strength as it relates to life as a whole. Running can be this uplifting, amazing, playful thing, or it can also tear you down from the inside out, the burnout stuff that we were talking about. And so with that in mind, like your strong is not the highest mileage version of you or whatever, any of that other stuff, or even the best race results or anything. Your strongest version of you is the one that finds the most meaning in the context of your full life. Maybe running is 99% of your life for some people. Maybe it's 1%. And whatever that means, you're still an elite freaking athlete that's finding your strong out there. And that's, I think, the thing that we can all try to celebrate a little bit more. So with that in mind, have your golden grams, have your pizza, and cut yourself lots of slack, because you're freaking awesome and you're strong. And this time is going to be a place where we can all just double down on that strength.
I regret not getting there organically, because I know it's funny that you even mentioned finding your own strong, because I feel like that's something I've been struggling to do just even in the last few months, really reflecting back on who I was in 2015 and 2016 and looking at the athlete I was years ago and comparing myself now. I've been doing it a lot in the last few years and really just trying to figure out why my brain is doing that, because I hear people like you all the time saying, like, focus on who you are now. Don't dwell on what you were at another time, because strong is relative. How your strong was then might not be how your strong is now. And it's been really difficult. So I'm really happy that you even just said that now, because it's a great conversation that I think I've maybe mentioned in my log in the last few weeks or last couple months, but I appreciate you saying that, because I know I'm not the only one that needs to hear it. I know there's viewers here every week that probably need to hear that too.
Well, and my biggest pet peeve of self-improvement is like, to be like, don't compare to other people. You're competing against past versions of yourself. It's like, screw that. You're not competing with anyone or anything. You're just trying to be the best version of yourself. Like that day when you wake up, the happiest, strongest version of yourself. And if that's not there, that's great too. And as an athlete, it's really hard because aging starts really young. I feel it every single day thinking back to, because, I've taken detailed notes on how I feel for a long time. But it goes way beyond that to how life unfolds, how our bodies like change on the cellular level, how the world changes around us, all these different things. And so what I really want athletes to think of with Strong is like, it is where I am now and the way that I'm building towards tomorrow. And then beyond that, that's just the process of it, of like embracing wherever that is so key. Because it's so hard because there's just such a temptation to have that comparison monster dictate your life, but it's a freaking monster and it's never going to be something that you want to make friends with. It's something that you need to lock up in a cage. And so, self-acceptance has to come from a place of accepting you're strong as it looks, as it feels, as it is. And then from there, work forward.
Be the best version of you today. Is the title of your next book, David, because people are like, Ingen's like, I want to make this my alarm clock, or it could be Golden Grams.
Oh,
yeah,
I would buy that.
Yeah.
I would buy that book.
I think we might have some copyright issues.
Oh,
but if you make the book
a lawyer.
look like a make the book look like a box of cereal,
a Golden Gram, or even like the texture of a Golden Gram,
a giant Golden Gram, people would buy it because they think it's real.
Guys, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to censor this because this is proprietary information. This whole podcast isn't going out. So everyone in the chat room, you'll have people in suits be at your doors soon. The men in black erasers. And I'm sorry because there was a lot of stuff dropped in there about cereal.
Oh man, it sucks that no one's gonna be able to ever hear that ever again until they buy the giant Golden Gram. Our guest tonight has been David Roach, who continues to be one of our favorite guests that we get on the show whenever he's available. And it's just, thank you again, David. I don't know how you managed to do it, but every episode, I even set it up at the beginning of the episode, like, I'm excited to see where we go with the conversation. I know I'm going to leave inspired. In my mind, I'm going, there's no way he could bring it as good as he brought it last week. And it doesn't matter because you always do. So David, thank you for being you and the best you today.
I appreciate you guys. And then because I ended on such a touchy-feely one, the last one I'm going to say, that's going to take 5 seconds, is embrace the weather that you're given. Don't complain about the heat. Adapt for it. Do what you need to do. But this is one of those times where accepting where you are now requires also accepting your geography. So the heat is your friend. And if you say that enough, eventually you might believe it.
It's funny because that could be literal or metaphorical, I guess, right?
Yes.
I can't wait to buy the Golden Gram. It's going to be so good. Our guest tonight has been David Roach. Please, David, where can people find your book, your website, find you, follow you, see more Addy? Let people know where they can find you.
Swaprunning.com. That's about it. Make sure you sign up for GRGR. And yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate this type of time so much. And everyone that's listening, your patience is greatly appreciated, but also I feel your love all the time after these, and it means so much to me.
Our guest tonight, David Roach, again, continues to just drop that hot mic knowledge. I don't ever want to say that sentence again.
Well, you did.
I did, and I probably will. But please go show David some love. One, for just being on the show, but also for giving so much love to all of his athletes and to everyone here in our live audience and the podcast and everything like that. And just for clarification, David was flailing wildly to our podcast listeners. Trust me. Go back and watch the YouTubers.
He hasn't stopped.
He hasn't stopped since he started doing it. Yeah, he's going. At the end of every episode, we do like to recognize members of the community who kind of go above and beyond. We call it our GR crew member of the week. We just love shouting members of the community out. Kim, who is this week's GR crew member?
Well, we talked a little bit about goals. We talked a little bit about virtual races. So this week's GR crew member of the week is Thompson Gebrselassie. I probably butchered your last name, but I tried. So Thompson signed up for 3 Brazen Racing retro races. He did the 50K last weekend and ran the other 2 half marathons today. So congratulations, Thompson. Huge accomplishment.
Nice job, my friend. Way to get some serious mileage done in a short window of time. Well done. Hope you're enjoying the recovery process at this point. 2 marathons in a day.
Golden Grams.
Golden Grams. Golden Gram.
Graham.
one giant, just pour milk on it. Fill it with milk. Oh my God, this is good. This is all so good. It's all proprietary. Thank you everyone for tuning in to Ginger Runner Live episode 309. We're going to move into our after show with David Roach. We're going to keep him for just a little bit of additional time. If you would like to join us on our after show, it's very easy to do. Just go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to all of our after shows, archives, current and future for the month. And then $3 and up gets our daily live stream as well, which we'd love to see you in the audience there. That's pretty much it. GRGR registration is open now. You can go to rungrgr.com. And the t-shirts sold out twice. We are working with Rabbit to hopefully we'll have like a pre-order available for more t-shirts if you register at the artist level. So the artist support level. Percentage of all registration goes directly to 6 photographers and artists who have been incredibly financially impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. Their income dropped to 0. So we're doing what we can to support them. They are friends of ours, amazingly talented photographers and artists that live throughout the US. And we're very excited that we reached almost $10,000 of support to divvy to them. And we're very excited about that.
Yes.
That is going to help them a lot. And I know we can do more. So if you haven't registered, consider it. rungrgr.com. That is it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Ginger Runner Live, episode 309. We'll see you guys next week for more. Get out there, train as hard as you want, virtually race harder, and party the hardest. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.